Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
It is my great honor to welcome all of you to today's commencement exercises for Thomas MacLaren School. On behalf of the faculty and staff of Thomas MacLaren, I welcome our parents, siblings, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and friends. Many of you have come a long way to be here, and we are so glad you are joining us today. Welcome to our board of directors, and to those of you who have served on our board in past years. Welcome to our alumni faculty and to our alumni. Welcome to our friends from the Charter School Institute. And of course, welcome to you, our graduates. I think each of you knows that today is bigger than just you. Today is a celebration of all of those who have helped you get here, your parents, siblings, friends, the faculty. This entire community has supported you this far, and we are thrilled to share this day with you. We also want to honor Melinda Harder, who is a founding faculty member, and this is her last graduation at MacLaren. Thank you, Ms. Harder. You were celebrated last night individually, but one thing that is so clear is the community you have formed with each other. And I just have to say, it feels heartwarming to be with you all in person on this special day and to see your actual faces, no masks. We are proud of you, and it is our joy to celebrate you. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you our graduate award winners, who will jointly give our valedictory address. As we have 4 winners of this award, we have asked each to give a brief reflection on their experience of the MacLaren community. Consider the 4 speeches as 4 different lenses into a shared experience. As this is a joint valedictory address, please hold your applause until all 4 have spoken. And now, I would like to welcome Ryan Canton, Elizabeth Roberts, Joel Shorey, and Andrea Cascaval.
So there I was. 6 years old, no supervision, stranded in the dangerous woods of Monument Valley Park. I was outcast by society, but what really happened is I ran away because my parents took away my Game Boy. So I sat there, a rock in each hand, just repeatedly striking, just waiting for the fire to start. And after several minutes, no sparks came, and I cried and went home. I thought I was ready to go out into the world, but I had no idea what I was in for. And, it's a little worrying I might be in a similar situation now. Here we all sit with a rock in each hand, ready to go out and make some fire. And it's scary. It's almost as scary as being 5 minutes late to Mr. Hansen's class. But not quite. I think instead of worrying about the unknown and everything that's coming ahead, I think everything we have, or everything we need to be prepared for tomorrow is right here. Something we read in Brothers Karamazov made me think this. At the end of the book, Alyosha gathers with a crowd of young boys around the grave of their friend, Ilyosheshka, after his funeral. And in life, this boy was tormented by those that were now gathered at his grave. Those boys he cursed, he threw stones at, and even stabbed were now standing around his grave to honor them. And Alyosha tells these boys, even though we may be involved with the most important affairs, achieve distinction or fall into great misfortune, all the same, let us never forget how good we once felt here, all together united by such good and kind feelings. There is nothing higher or stronger or sounder or more useful afterwards in life than some good memory. That even if they were to become cruel in life later on, they would have this memory of their kindness, love, and strength to ground them. I believe that if we remember what we've accomplished together, the trials we've overcome, and all the onions we've gave and received, that we will be prepared for all the challenges coming our way. And I'm not talking about remembering the great struggle you endured in receiving a detention for eating your book to greatly digest the author's insights. I won't forget that, but what I'm saying is we need to remember the screams and stomps we created at our athletic, clan, and performance events for each other. Remember who was there to listen to you while you were struggling. Every time I've fallen, you all were here to pick me up with your company, your words and letters of support, and Cheetos. Remember the joy we found in our studies, the literary characters we connected with, the art pieces created on canvas, in stage, and in seminars. In class, we became a part of something that was greater than ourselves. You, class of 21, and faculty of Thomas MacLaren, showed me how to rise to standards that were greater than my own. You showed me the impact a small act of kindness can have in a time of need, and you showed me how to love and experience the world. Remembering this, what pains and challenges could the future hold that we will not endure and conquer? Maybe a ferocious bear attack. But other than that, we have proven ourselves ready, rocks in hand, to go out into the world and make fire. I will remember our strength, our love, and our curiosity. And I want you to remember it too.
In ninth grade year at MacLaren, you read the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was born a slave. Douglass witnessed and suffered countless acts of inexplicable cruelty from his two masters. During his time in the city, his master's wife began to teach him the alphabet. Even after she was corrupted, Frederick pursued his education in secret, often concocting competitions in dark alleys with young boys to learn to spell new words. Once Frederick Douglass was able to read and write, the world was illuminated, opening up to him. Books about any topic imaginable, the rules of the government, the laws, even simple street signs were accessible now. Frederick Douglass used his educational liberation to fight for the physical liberation of all slaves. I was in awe of the way Frederick Douglass struggled for every inch of literacy he gained, and indignant that he had to. I finished the book with a newfound gratitude for my own education. I had taken my education for granted. Even though I didn't have to fight for it, I have been set free in a similar way. Here at MacLaren, we have been taught the blueprints of the universe through calculus and physics. In HL class, we have struggled with fundamental questions about our humanity. Everything from, what are the characteristics of natural man, to, what can you know? Aristotle introduced the controversial question, what are you owed? From To Kill a Mockingbird to Brothers Karamazov, we have struggled with knowing our responsibility for others, and how we should treat others with dignity and respect, lest we plant one bad seed in the life of one innocent. We have wondered about our duty to our state. Socrates and Martin Luther King Jr. spent time in jail. One gave his life, because they felt a duty to the justice system of their state, even if the law was unjust. When I entered MacLaren for my first day in my maroon shirt and bright blue braces, I had no idea what a liberal arts education meant. It was after reading Frederick Douglass's narrative that I began to understand. When we go back to the classics, to philosophers who have struggled with questions about our humanity, and physicists who had wanted to define the world in a new way, we walk their journeys with them as they became more awake to the world around them. Our liberal arts education has not only given us the necessary fundamentals applicable for any profession, it has prepared us to learn anything. We have birthed the habits that will continue to serve us the rest of our lives. Like Frederick Douglass, we have cultivated our humanity and been liberated by the realization of our inherent freedom. But Frederick Douglass didn't stop there. He used his hard-won education to break the chains of oppression and shatter the shackles of injustice. Martin Luther King Jr. elegantly states, "Human progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability." As we leave here, more awake to the world, more human, more free, I believe we have a calling to push for positive change. This past year, COVID was able to bring some of the world's brokenness to the forefronts of our minds. We are faced with polarized political factions separated by the ever-widening chasm carved by the rising river of social media. Together, I believe the MacLarenites can help patch the wounds, heal the gaps, and look to a future just a bit brighter. Thank you.
In the third quarter of 11th grade HL, I met Socrates. You guys may know him as Socrates from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. At 70 years old, Socrates was unjustly sentenced to death. Historical texts tell us exactly what was said in his trial, and they relate the conversations that he had with his close friends, knowing that his death was imminent. Socrates did not fear death. He actually welcomed it. It confused me how he could have this conviction, because hearing him talk about death made me first realize that it was my biggest fear. Socrates told his jury that death was one of two things: either nothingness or simply a relocating of the soul. To junior year Joel, and frankly to senior year Joel a lot of the time too, both options were truly terrifying. I wasn't exactly sure why, but I knew that I was extremely afraid of dying, and that I needed to know how to fix it. Socrates goes on to explain that if death is nothingness, it would be comparable to a long dreamless sleep, supposedly blissful and relaxing. If death is a relocating of the soul, and I apologize, but I have to quote the Greek here, Socrates says, «Uk estin andri agathoi, kakon uden ute zonti ute tesanti." This translates to, a good man can never be harmed, either in life or in death. So that's easy, right? It's not. It turns out that the way Socrates is able to welcome death is that he knows he was good in his life. So if Socrates' knowledge of his goodness gives him hope in the face of death, then The reason that I'm afraid of death must be that I don't think that I'm good. So then the question is, why am I not good? Which is a hard question. And to answer it, we must also answer what goodness is. We know that we should practice goodness. It's in the school's mission statement, and it's on that banner over there. But what does it look like? Did anyone in our distinguished MacLaren education ever tell us exactly what it is? Is it being good at spike ball? Because I did that. In reality, no one really told us exactly what it is. Unsurprisingly, I'm going to keep talking about Socrates. Plato's Meno gets pretty close. Socrates tells us that virtue might not even have a definition. We all think that we know exactly what virtue is, but when we're questioned, we're proved to usually have no idea how to define it. The only constant that follows every explanation of virtue itself is that it should be pursued as it is some form of goodness. Socrates dedicated his life to virtue. He did not fear death. He was 100% confident that his pursuit of virtue was worthwhile, and he was good. It gave him hope, even through the uncertainty of dying. Now, we can't possibly know what lies beyond death, but at MacLaren, among so many other things, I've learned to practice goodness and to pursue virtue, and I've learned that that's worthwhile, and it will ease my fear of death. Because what we do know is that this will work. So, for no reason, should we let anything hold us back from being good and doing what we know is right.
Antonin Dvorak composed his famous E minor symphony titled From the New World on a short stay in New York City. Throughout the four movements, we hear themes that mimic both the folk music of his homeland, Bohemia, and that of his current home at the time, America. It is fascinating to notice his nostalgia for his native land woven into a tribute to American history and culture. The symphony expresses Dvorak's personal experience of coming from one place and discovering another. Today involves a similar combination of emotions. As we go forth to find our new worlds, we will build upon the foundational education that we have received at MacLaren, our homeland. It has shaped the way that we are beginning to see the world, and it will always hold a special place in our hearts. The essence of symphonic orchestration is to celebrate each instrument as part of the whole ensemble, in order to create a rich variety of colors and textures in the music. It is our education that allows us to experience life as a symphony, an ensemble of interwoven truths and experiences. Motifs recur throughout the sciences and arts. For example, the concept of conservation of matter is important in biology and chemistry. We learn that nutrients and compounds are constantly broken down and rearranged, but never created nor destroyed. Although Marx, Hobbes, and Friedman have quite different perspectives, the core question they all ask is, how can man be free in society? In an orchestra, one must pay attention to the complexities of one's individual part, as well as to the overall effect of the music. At MacLaren, we have built up a strong foundation for our future endeavors, a capacity to understand both fine-grained detail and broader contexts. In art history, for instance, after examining the particulars of each work, we contextualized it within its greater art movement and historical period. We have learned to appreciate that everything has value both individually and as part of a greater system, ourselves included. According to the mission statement, the goal of Thomas MacLaren School is to develop young men and women who are fully human and fully awake to the world. Part of what makes us fully human
is our power to both experience and question the beauty of the world. MacLaren has taught each student that books, music, and theorems are not only interesting in their own right, but also as different elements that together give us a fuller understanding of our humanity. Whether we realize it or not, our early awareness of this duality has shaped the way we will approach the future. I hope that each and every one of us will be able to experience our lives, our personal ensemble of experiences, in the same unified manner in which we experience a work of music like Dvorak's Ninth Symphony. We are awake to the world. From its smallest complexities to its largest systems, it is a rich and colorful world that we can now begin to embrace and understand. Thank you.
At this time, while they are here, I would like to present the Graduate Award, the highest award given to a student at Thomas MacLaren School. Unlike the way some schools select valedictorians, not only do we look for students who have reached the highest level of academic achievement, but we also want to uphold students who clearly model the pursuit of goodness, truth, and beauty, and who are actively invested as lifelong learners. At last night's honoring, there were several aspects of Ryan Canton's character that were praised. Mr. Hansen said, "Ryan has a consistent sense of wonder and engagement. He shows true love of the subject. He is a leader committed to the group effort." This was common in other subjects such as chemistry, calculus, and humane letters. Congratulations, Ryan. Last night, Ms. Burrell said that Andrea Cascaval was purposeful, resolute, and persevering in all her subjects. This is particularly evident as an artist and a musician, whether it was her captivating recital she performed last week or in her artwork where she united Da Vinci's David with Raphael's environment from the School of Athens. Congratulations, Andrea. Last night, Mr. Morgan honored Joel Shorey for seeking to become morally and intellectually virtuous. He shows excellence across the board, not only in his academic work in various classes, but also in how he dignifies his classmates and teachers. Joel is a kind and generous member of our community who truly loves learning for its own sake. Congratulations, Joel. Last night, Ms. Greisaber said that Elizabeth Roberts was gracious, humble, and seeks the best. She was willing to switch clans and instantly became a leader with her new group of students. She pushed herself in calculus to excel in every way. She strives to bring out the best in others, in the classroom, and on the soccer field. Congratulations, Elizabeth.
It is a great privilege to introduce to you our commencement speaker, Professor Timothy Fuller. Dr. Fuller is a member of the MacLaren Board of Directors and has taught at Colorado College since 1965. During his time there, he has served the college in various roles: chair of the Political Science Department, dean of faculty, and acting president. He received his PhD with distinction from Johns Hopkins University. He has published many essays and edited books, including but not limited to The Intellectual Legacy of Michael Oakeshott and The Voice of Liberal Learning, Michael Oakeshott on Education. He has lectured and taught at 44 colleges and universities internationally, including at the London School of Economics. He still teaches political theory and enjoys doing reading groups with his students. He has been a mentor and teacher to many of MacLaren's own faculty: Ben Bertzos, Tom Roberts, Madeline Rilling, Robbie Adler, Caleb Kimball, and myself. We thought it was only fitting in his final year as a board member at Thomas MacLaren to honor him and his service to the school. And really, the honor is ours since we get the chance to hear him speak. Without further ado, please welcome Professor Timothy Fuller.
Well, I begin with greetings to the students about to graduate, to their families and friends, to the faculty, administration, and staff of Thomas MacLaren, and to all assembled here today to celebrate the 9th commencement at this distinguished school. And I also would add a special tribute to the eloquence and profundity of the valedictory speeches, which I think instantiate what the school seeks to do. And I want to say also how grateful I am to Mary Faith Hall and the Board of Directors for inviting me to address you on this auspicious occasion. It has been a privilege and an honor to serve on the MacLaren Board, to have collaborated in the defense of liberal arts education in the Western tradition. And I also want to say to the graduands that I feel at home in your company. It is a familiar environment. Like you, I had the good fortune to attend a great public high school, which was devoted to the study of the classics, the best that has been thought and said. I owe that school a great deal, and my service on your board is in part repayment for the investment made in me many years ago. In your course of study, you have encountered the heroic struggles of Achilles and Hector, the voyage of self-discovery of Odysseus, and the pilgrimage of Aeneas from the wreckage of Troy to the founding of Rome in Italy. An odyssey is an adventure into uncharted waters and eventual return to where you came from. As T.S. Eliot says in the fourth of his 4 quartets, Little Gidding, one ends where one began, only to know the place for the first time. Aeneas adventures to a new land, not to return whence he came, but to recreate in new terms what he has carried with him of an old tradition. You can see that these both express fundamental features of the human condition. There is movement into new intellectual lands, but aided by the resources that you carry with you to provide balance and practical judgment, a condition of both tradition and innovation. An unrehearsed intellectual adventure. Unrehearsed because we cannot know in advance all that we will encounter. You have also encountered nature both as an object of scientific investigation, but also as the inspiration for poetry and art. You have encountered the fundamentals of mathematics, and you have performed some of the greatest music. In all, you have encountered different modes of insight, and you have been invited to reflect on how they complement each other. You have now completed one vital stage of this intellectual journey in preparation for the next stage. A commencement is both a beginning and an ending, and it is not unusual to feel some trepidation at leaving a familiar, supportive environment. Yet commencement does not so much mean leaving where you have been, as it means making use of what you have gained in new circumstances, carrying with you something of the highest importance, keeping it alive in situations which will not always be friendly to the life of the mind. You have awakened to the capacity to be both committed and capable of detachment from purely passionate emotional response. A great school for that is what you have been given, combines the study of the great expressions of the human spirit with the cultivation of standards of judgment. This means, of course, gaining knowledge and the discipline of careful and accurate study. And even if you do not retain all the details of what you have learned, as indeed you won't, to have entered into the ways of thinking and writing of the best minds is to have acquired standards, implicitly or explicitly, which will stay with you even if you do not always recall exactly where you first encountered them. The ability to understand alternative points of view, even when you may not agree with them. To make arguments for what you believe, while fully aware of the objections that may be made to those arguments. To criticize the views of others by focusing on the strongest, not the weakest forms of their arguments, is to elevate the inquiry into what is best for us, and to achieve that degree of moderation and carefulness which Aristotle told us is the mark of the morally serious person. Knowledge we need, of course, but we also need judgment or practical wisdom. By this, I mean the capacity to decide what to do in circumstances where, inevitably, different possible courses of action present themselves, and thus where passion too often tends to drive out reflection. In your study of Socratic dialogues, you could see that the dialogue, in its deepest sense, is a technique for creating a common effort among the participants, where passionate intensity is subdued by profound inquiry. If the question, for example, is, what is justice? And someone offers a definition to begin the inquiry, in a dialogue, it becomes the responsibility of all involved to test that definition, considering it independently of who first proposed it, in the quest for potential agreement, and failing that, to continue the inquiry indefinitely. Differing voices, bound together by a common quest. The alternative is persuasive speech-making, in which the speaker proposes to end the dialogue in search of victory. This, too, is a natural part of the human condition, the contest between dialogue and rhetoric. The quest for the good, the true, and the beautiful is the motivation, not for replacing debate, for that is impossible, but for encountering passionate intensity which pervades much of our interaction. The quest to understand more fully what we understand only in part is to respond to our awareness of what might be called the task of human beings to fulfill, to complete their humanity. In short, you have been invited to enter the world of liberal learning, to take your place in the conversation of mankind, respecting what is best for the human condition. One could say it is the entry into experiencing the fullness of what a human life can be. To enjoy for a time the leisure to pursue such fundamental questions and to continue that pursuit as you go off to further studies in college or university is a special grace. Much of life is involved in the practicalities of getting along, and of course we cannot neglect those things. The precondition of living well is to satisfy the needs of life itself. On the other hand, it is important to remember that to satisfy those inevitable needs is the staging ground on the path to the higher pursuits which distinguish the fully human life. Merely to exist is not enough. Thus, you are invited to take your place in a great tradition we can trace back to Plato's founding of his academy. We know that there have always been places for liberal learning set aside in the midst of the practical activities that take precedence in much of our existence. We are both practical and reflective. And you are fortunate to have studied in a school where this is understood. The Western tradition preserves, by remembering the Socratic dialogue through time, maintaining spaces in society for it to be experienced. We care about what is currently relevant. For us here and now, the pandemic has been dramatically relevant, both to living itself and to living well. But we neglect at our peril the relevance of that which is not bound to a particular time and place or to a particular threat. The great 20th century scholar and theologian C.S. Lewis was addressing his students at Oxford in 1939 as, with the outbreak of World War II, the lights of Europe were going out. The question was, why in this emergency should we be studying Renaissance drama or poetry? Lewis's response was that if we wait for the world's problems to be resolved, we will never get to liberal learning. In short, the courage to pursue liberal learning will always be tested by the threats of the practical urgencies that always surround us. To be committed to improving the conditions under which we live is indispensable, but we should not have a narrow view of what such commitment entails. To survive is urgent and immediate, but to live for what is highest and noblest must ultimately justify survival. To be human is to know this, even when we are often tempted to avoid it. I first began to think about these things when I was at the stage in my education that you are now. That was the beginning of the thoughts I am sharing with you today. I pursued them further in my undergraduate days at a classic liberal arts college where I committed myself to defending the liberal arts tradition, which I have been attempting to do ever since. I have learned that the tradition of liberal learning has to be defended because the temptation to discount or dismantle it will always be with us. Despite that, it continues to be available to us over 25 centuries. And even though I have traveled a long way since I began, I have not forgotten what it was like to be where you are at the beginning. And this is especially because I have the good fortune to be with you, who will carry the torch of liberal learning into the next generation. I commend you all and congratulate you as you take the next step in your unrehearsed intellectual adventure.
Professor Fuller, thank you. Thank you for your friendship to the school. Thank you for your guidance and assistance from the founding years to helping us develop the Leadership Institute, to sending us your graduates, and to always calling us to the meaning and treasure that is the liberal arts tradition. As a thank you, not only for taking the time to speak to us today, but also for the years of service you have given to MacLaren, we have a MacLaren print. It is of a spire at Christ Church, Oxford University. We found this print fitting for several reasons. Given your dedication to higher education and the liberal arts, Christ Church is uniquely appropriate given its historic significance as an educational institution, not to mention that two of its famous graduates are W.H. Auden and John Locke. Additionally, as you know, the Pilgrim Room at Colorado College's Shove Chapel has ancient stones built into the fabric, one of which is from the dining hall of Christ Church, Oxford, dating to the 16th century. This print is a crossroads of the tradition which you love dearly and have given your life to. The Western tradition, the liberal arts, Oxford, CC, and MacLaren. It is with joy and gratitude that we gift this to you. Thank you. All right, now the moment you have been waiting for, the granting of the diplomas. Students who have achieved the highest level of academic standing receive a MacLaren diploma with honors or cum laude. Students graduating with honors will be announced as their name is called. The assistant head of school, Ms. Maslow, will read the names of the graduates. Please come up to receive your diploma when Miss Maslow calls your name.
Will the first row please rise? Renee Elizabeth Adam. Maximilian James Ambule. Xavier John Ambule. Rebecca Rose Baker. Sarah Matson Blankenship. Graduating cum laude, Annabelle Renee Brown. Graduating cum laude, Ryan Joseph Canton. Rachel Grace Carper. Graduating cum laude, Andrea Joanna Cascaval. Alexander Joseph Cintron. Aaron Giles Kaufman. Sean Price Kaufman. Caitlin Michelle Contreras. Bryn Lindsay Dickman. Angel Marie Fajardo. Jesse James Fajardo. Hannah Leigh Franklin. Michael Anthony French. Adeline Vasquez Frisbee. Adam Patrick Fuller. Will the second row please rise? Graduating cum laude, Silas Ross Groden. Victoria Elizabeth Hamblin. Alicia Marie Hay. Graduating cum laude, Carissa Rose Hoppy. Graduating cum laude, Ruth Genevieve Herbacek. Tara Maxine Hurt. Raymond Roland Jakubczyk. Amanda Kathleen Koos. John Andrew Kraus. Michael John Lancaster. Haley Renee Lanoska. Sander Schenberger. Lauren Lee Lovingood. Graduating cum laude, Kieran Esther Mai. Justin Chandran Manar. Alexander Gabriel Marquez. Nolan James Martinez. Ian Sheldon McGrath. Graduating cum laude, Kieran Joseph McGuire. Graduating cum laude, McKenna Ann Rose McIntosh. Will the third row please rise? Daniel Jameson Miller. Isaac Trent Montgomery. Graduating cum laude, Sophia Reverie Mulholland. Danielle Elise Neeland. Michaela Rose Ortiz. Graduating cum laude, Elizabeth Renee Roberts. Rylan Page Romero Dunn. Justin Thomas Salo. Jack Augustus Seibert. Connor Patrick Shankland. Graduating cum laude, Tucker Scott Shannon. Graduating cum laude, Helen Alexandria Sharp. Graduating cum laude, Joel Matthew Shorey. Graduating cum laude, Leah Beth Shorey. Luke Edward Slater. Jacob Anthony Stretch. Emma Nicole Tafoya. Graduating cum laude, Colby John Paul Vostek.
Just have a few closing remarks before we wrap up. Pondus meum, amor meus. Augustine of Hippo wrote these words. He lived in the late 4th and early 5th century. He was from northern Africa in what is modern-day Algeria and was trained in the liberal arts, including Latin and Greek, although he sulked about having to learn the latter. He is one of the greatest and most influential thinkers of the Western tradition, an enduring influence on preeminent thinkers and writers through the millennia, even to modern-day philosophers or novelists such as Hannah Arendt, Martin Heidegger, and Albert Camus. Pondus meum, amor meus means, my love is my weight. The love he's talking about is what you love most. It is the gravitational force in your life. Where you go and what you do is determined by this love, and you select it. You choose what you love above all, and you get what you choose. Yes, you can love many things, but what Augustine asserts is that ultimately there is one love that dominates the rest. And what you love above all decides everything in your life. Certainly, you don't control many things in life. The pandemic reminds us of that very clearly and forcefully. But what you choose to do in those circumstances is determined by this love. You will recall in Dante's Inferno when Dante encountered Paolo and Francesca, who were swept away by lust for one another. Like the wind, they were driven to and fro by this urge. And when Francesca recounted what happened, we see that she never really said what the deed was or what happened. Neither of them ever took responsibility. Francesca mentioned the lascivious book, but did not own up to what they did, to what really moved and drove them. Their weight was their desire for one another, which neither of them acknowledged as the force and center of what their lives became. Or remember Count Ugolino gnawing at the skull of his enemy, frozen and locked in resentment, bitterness, and hatred, talking around what actually happened with him and his sons in that tower. It was his immense pride that locked him into the ice, buried him, weighed him down, no escape. He loved his own self and his own sense of being violated as he fed on his own hatred. He may have loved his sons and his city, but what really drove him was pride, a pride he protected at all costs. Ugolino, Francesca, and Paolo made a choice about what they loved, and they got what they chose. How do you know what you ought to love? I point you in the direction of Aristotle. You recall that Aristotle says we do everything for an end, a telos, but there is a supreme end toward which all other ends are geared, happiness. He describes happiness as an activity of the soul in accord with reason and virtue. People commonly express that they want good careers, a nice house, a large paycheck, ability to travel, etc. But their ultimate desire is happiness. And how do you get there? Reason and virtue. How do you become virtuous? By building good habits through repeated, deliberate, and cognizant choices. If you want to learn how to be self-controlled, choose and understand those choices that make you so. If you want to be courageous, choose courageous actions. And at some point, you start delighting and finding pleasure in them, according to Aristotle. And the more you become courageous or generous, the more you'll deliberately choose actions that are emblematic of those virtues. Ultimately, for Aristotle, your habits determine your character. And how do you learn to choose the right things so you can become virtuous? How do you learn what are the right things to love and how to love them properly? It's the people you surround yourself with. You could choose to be around others who are useful to you. Recall Aristotle's 3 forms of friendship, which you learned just over a year ago when the pandemic forced us to go fully remote. These are the people you exchange niceties with and receive some tangible benefit from, like a business partner. The basis of this first friendship is utility. And then there are those who give you pleasure. If you do something wrong, they probably won't challenge you. They'll just be around for a good time. You might even get good, engaging conversations. They're fun. The basis of this second friendship is pleasure. And then there are those who make you more fully human. They are generous, self-controlled, steady, deliberate. They treat people with dignity. They are the ones who actually care about you and want your good, and they know what the real good is. They're the ones who are willing to risk your defensiveness, your passive aggressiveness, your insecurities, because they want what's good for you. And if they're mistaken, they'll apologize. The basis of this last friendship is virtue. Aristotle says we usually have all these kinds of people in our lives. But the last one, the one who wants what's best for you and knows what it is, don't ever lose those people. Be bonded to them. They will help you be merciful and just and wise and generous. With them, you will be happy because you will know how to act in accord with reason and virtue. And you'll love being around them. And who else helps you to love the right things? The spoudios, the one with high standards of excellence and moral character. When you find someone like that in your lives, cling to that person. Learn from them. Aristotle says they are the ones who know what these virtues mean in practice. courage, generosity, and justice. I think of many stories you all have about having Mr. Hansen for orchestra, the precision he teaches you with, the high standards, the clarity, the direction, the agency, all of which elevated you to a performance you didn't know you were capable of. Mr. Hansen is an image of the Spudaios. So if you ever find a community with authentic friends and the Spudaios, root yourselves there. You'll get a good paycheck or a house anywhere. But community, friendship, and people with high standards, they are rare. Aristotle says that's why we praise virtuous people so highly, because they are not common. Invest your life in these people when you find them. Through them, you will learn to be happy. Not the superficial, comfortable, easygoing, trite, carefree attitude that masquerades as happiness. Aristotle's talking about the real, solid, rooted happiness that makes you fully human. The authentic happiness where you love the right things in the right way. Pondus meum amor meus. My weight is my love. What will be your weight? What will be your center of gravity that determines who you become? Will you love family and friends above all else? Maybe it will be your job. Maybe it'll be duty to country or political party or religious affiliation. Will it be your self-image, comfort and pleasure, success? What about money or ambition? Sensuality? Civil rights or the poor? Truth, beauty, goodness? At the end of the day, what is it that will be your weight? Of course, you may say you have multiple loves, which is true. On a day-to-day basis, this comes to the fore, but the question remains, at the end of the day, what will you love most? Which of your loves comes first? Remember Antigone. She was faced with a decision. What would she honor first? Her sister's wishes? The laws of the city? Fear of punishment? Her dead brother? The laws of the gods? She made a choice. When Socrates was put on trial, he made a choice. And the list goes on. Sidney Carton, Elizabeth Bennet, Marx, Locke, the Karamazovs, Gabriel, the Baker, Huck, Hegel, Dr. King, all had many loves, but when it came down to it, they chose which love would matter most. What weight will you choose? Pondus meum amor meus. What we ultimately love shows up in the regular decisions we make. When you have stayed up late, what is it for? What do you lose sleep over? What do you like to post or snap, and why? When do you not follow through on a commitment, and how come? Why did you choose what you're doing next year? When your weekend plans are interrupted, how do you react? What most upsets you, and why? When you get defensive, how come? When a friend or a coworker inconveniences you, why do you respond the way you do? When you have a chance to put the good of another before your own good, does that delight you or annoy you? All these decisions are small revelations of what you really love. Pondus meum amor meus. Imagine yourself on your deathbed years from today. You have a few people gathered around you. Who do you want those people to be? What are they like? What do you want them to say about the life you lived? What would they say you loved above all else? What do you wish they had said? No matter what you have decided to do next year, or what you will decide to do in 4 years, or what uncontrollable circumstances may impact your life, just remember Augustine, pondus meum, amor meus. My love is my weight, and what you choose to love will decide everything. Happy commencement. Now, before we bring this commencement exercise to an end, we have one more important thing to do. Graduates, would you please rise? And as tradition dictates, move your tassels from right to the left side of your cap. And I now present to you the class of 2021 at Thomas MacLaren School.